They carry the responsibility of taking care of my little sister and brother.
5 years old. I mean, no kid should have to do that.
It happened.
Do you get mad about it?
Yeah. I actually got to the point where last time I seen my mother, I got so mad that I tried to actually murder my mother.
While the focus may be on understanding the past, there is also emphasis on preparing for the future and a normal life. That means acquiring job skills. There are also carefully supervised trips into the outside world.
We have to be able to see how they're going to respond to the community at large. It's taking a risk, but we don't take a risk with girls whom we think are going to be assaultive or endanger the community in any way. We don't do that. We will hold a girl up in that area till we feel that we're taking a safe risk.
Massachusetts is betting Bernie Tavares is a safe risk. After 8 months in the Littleton girl's house, she's back home, even though she has a long history of violence.
I grabbed the girl by the back of the hair and I dragged it out of the car and I smashed her face against the corner of the door and I ripped her skin off her teeth. I just kept punching her in the face and I just left her there and hopped back in the car and went to another section where, the cops wouldn't see us.
What would set you off?
Anything. I mean, I'd wait for a girl to look at me and I'd pick a fight with her. Even if it was an old lady, I would, I'd pick a fight with her.
So if I was walking down the street and I just glanced at you.
Yes.
You'd come up and start hitting on me?
Yes.
Even if you didn't know me?
Even if I didn't know you.
Why?
I don't know. I just loved to fight. It was like my hobby.
Some hobby. In December of 1987, Marie Gagney learned of Bernie's hobby firsthand. Bernie wanted to know what it would be like to hit someone with a baseball bat.
Then I hit her in the face, and I cut her face open, and then I hit her in the head. It cut her head open.
Police officer Robert Duchesne.
I thought she had been in a car accident, just the way I'd looked at her because her face was such a mess. It looked like she'd gone through a window.
The victim will never forget that day.
Sometimes I just think about it and I bust out into tears because there's so much anxiety and so much that, it's just, words can't explain how you feel inside after something like this has happened to you.
Did it make you feel good?
I don't know, it just made me feel like I accomplished something, Like I never beat up nobody with a bat before, and it felt, I don't know, it felt tough, Rambo. I don't know.
Let's get on to family, which would be you, Karen, and Miss Tavares. How are things going here?
Nancy Feeney's in charge of the team that counsels and keeps an eye on Bernie.
When you met Bernie a year ago, was she remorseful about the crime that had...
No. She showed very little remorse, if any. And in fact, I believe she told someone that for all the trouble she got into, she might as well have just killed him. But that's not Bernie now. Bernie's done her time, made responsible changes in her life, and would not say that now. That's not Bernie now.
Karen Mahoney is an important member of the rehabilitation team. She's a tracker. Her job is to keep track of Bernie's whereabouts and activities 24 hours a day.
I have to call in at 9 o'clock and after school and tell them where I'm going, if I'm going out, if I'm staying home. Yeah, this is Bernie Tavares and I'll be in for the night.
I would check the service and make sure that she's called in and says she's in, and then I would go by her house just unannounced and see what she's doing.
I thought it was Thursday.
Nice.
So what are we gonna do?
We're just checking to see if you're at home.
Oh yeah? Well,
Bernie is encouraged to lead a normal social life, minus the bad habits of the past. One of her favorite spots is a disco called the Car Palace.
And I'm not into fighting. I just love to dance, and I'm out on a dance floor most of the time.
And I usually go in with the girls and hang around and just see what's going on at the Car Palace. Make sure that everything looks okay to me as far as I feel comfortable leaving the girls there, that they're going to be safe. She has been accountable. Her attendance at school has been excellent. She's been actively seeking employment with me. She has a super attitude. My concerns around Bernie are her dealing with her family issues.
My father was an alcoholic, and he used to beat up on my mom and stuff. He was real bad, real bad. Nobody could do anything to him. Nobody could stop him for what he wanted to do. I knew I couldn't do nothing about it because he would beat the hell out of me, you know.
Bernie's counselors believe she has to confront emotional issues, like her feelings about her father. So there are frequent and sometimes painful counseling sessions.
I don't even like to hear his name. I don't want to bother him. I don't want to talk about him. I never will. It makes me feel worse.
Like there's a point though, we gotta feel worse before you can feel better. Yeah. You gotta get through the garbage before you can get to the...
I don't think it'll make me feel any better by talking about him.
My concern is that if she doesn't deal with those anger issues, that could be the situation that could bring her maybe back to where she was before, that she needs to deal with that. But right now she's doing tremendously well.
Is Bernie one of the success stories?
So far, Bernie is one of the success stories. I have great hopes that the prognosis is going to be good. It does depend on how good our aftercare program is. And that really is the key to her continuing the progress that she's made.
You say so far. When will you be able to comfortably say yes?
A year from now.
Edward Loughran is commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services.
Society measures success in your business by recidivism rates. What's your recidivism rate?
Well, very few of the girls, in fact, it's less than 15% of the girls are actually reincarcerated in the adult system, which I think is an extraordinarily low number.
Barry Crisberg recently studied the Massachusetts system.
Massachusetts, in my opinion, comes closest to the ideal of what the juvenile justice system is all about. Individualized programs for troubled youth. They provide appropriate security for the dangerous youth, and for those youth that don't need secure custody, they move them into settings that bring them much closer to their eventual return as productive citizens.
Next, a look at the babies of bad girls. Miracle of life. It's a moment that 21-year-old Tiffany Wheeler has awaited for months. The birth of her first child.
And we'll keep the baby here.
These first moments with her new son are precious. For in 72 hours, Tiffany will return, without her baby, to a cell at California's Ventura Training School. It was at Ventura that Tiffany got pregnant while doing 6.5 years for a murder committed when she was 15.
I had a boyfriend, and I had it worked out to where he can come to my room, and I turned up pregnant.
The boyfriend was a male inmate who managed to visit Tiffany's cell on a work detail. Last year, 6 other girls also became pregnant while doing time at Ventura.
Teenage pregnancy in itself has become a major national issue. Many of the babies born here at Lincoln Medical Center in the Bronx, New York, are the offspring of teenagers, some as young as 13. Nationwide, about 15% of America's teenage girls are either pregnant or already mothers. But among incarcerated girls in states like Louisiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin, the rate is 30%. At the Ventura Training School in California, 4 in 10 girls are either pregnant or already have at least one child. And in the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, the problem is even worse.
A good 50% of the girls who come to the department are pregnant or are parents already. And that poses enormous tasks for the department in both supervising those girls and making arrangements for their children.
And the chances are, many of the children of those bad girls will themselves end up in jail or prison.
I used that children in foster care in California as an example.
Professor Schwartz is the author of a new study which indicates that in some families, criminal behavior seems to be passed on from generation to generation.
Well, a full 50% of all the girls who are in juvenile training schools throughout the United States reported having a brother, sister, mother, or father who had been committed to a jail or prison, spent time in a jail or prison, and that's really quite a shocking statistic.
You're concerned if we don't break the link now, it may really haunt us in the future.
That's right. I wouldn't be surprised to see an increase in the number of juveniles incarcerated who have parents who've been incarcerated.
Kiwana Parks of Wichita, Kansas is part of the second generation in one of those families. What sociologists don't know is whether her twin sons, now 22 months old, will become yet a third generation linked by crime. Kiwana has been arrested over 20 times. She's now serving an indeterminate sentence for prostitution. Her father, Jerry Haney, has been to prison 5 times. Right now, he's out on parole, has a job, and is trying to make a new start. But he's the first to admit Kiwana's been affected by his example.
I've had 5 burglary convictions, 4 theft convictions, and maybe 15 petty larceny convictions.
Everything my daddy owned practically was stolen. You know, he was always stealing something. Every time he come home with something new, I'd be like, he didn't buy that. You know, Daddy didn't buy that. Daddy stole that, you know.
The part of my life that my daughter saw, I think it influenced her life. You know, she didn't really know any other type of way to live except the way she saw me live.
He was in prison for a long time in my life. A lot in and out. You know, he was in and out my life.
And Kiwana has been in and out of jails and detention halls since she was 12. Even the birth of her twins didn't affect her criminal behavior. From her cell in the Kansas youth lockup, Kiwana made an audio tape so the children could hear their mother's voice.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Big boy. Big boy.
The twins live with Kiwana's grandmother in Wichita, the same place Kiwana was raised while her father was in prison. These days, the twins rarely see their mother, and when they do, it's in lockup.
Come back to mama. Come to mama. Come mama. Come to mama. Come to mama.
When Kiwana is released, she'll have received no practical training in single parenting, which might help her deal with the responsibilities of raising her sons, so they don't end up as a third generation behind bars. The fact is, there are only a few programs anywhere in the country to help kids like Kiwana break the multi-generation cycle of crime.
No, we have to wait till Ida's done.
One of the best is the Mentor program, which operates in Massachusetts. The Mentor approach puts violent girls and their babies in the homes of foster parents who teach the young mothers both parenting skills and self-discipline. Ida Morales is 15. Her baby, Angelina, is 14 months old. Last year, when Ida came to live with Pete and Jean Washington, she was pregnant and recently convicted of robbery and multiple assault and batteries. Now it's the job of Pete and Jean to turn Ida into a law-abiding citizen and a good mother.
You want you to move her head?
Well, I'll hold her head with one hand and put it in with the other. Okay.
Even with the support of the foster family, Ida keeps a hectic schedule for a 15-year-old. Her day begins at 5:20, with just enough time to dress before the baby wakes up. Then there's the struggle of dressing a sleepy toddler, preparing her bottles for the day, and making the 6:30 bus. State-funded services provide everything from the school bus that picks them up in the morning to daycare for Angelina. It also pays for vocational training for Ida. After school, Ida takes her foster family's children to the park while her own baby has a nap.
Can you get the red one?
Then after Ida's homework, there's time for mother and baby to get to know each other.
Can you put it on? Can you put it on?
But most delinquent mothers will never enjoy that kind of opportunity.
Yes, my pretty baby.
Back in California, Tiffany Wheeler was able to spend only 3 days with her newborn son. Tiffany isn't scheduled for release from the Ventura school until March of 1990. In the meantime, her son Cody will live with his grandmother 500 miles away from Ventura.
Mommy loves you. Mommy
Both
loves
Tiffany
you,
and her
boy.
son will miss that early bonding between infant and mother that many experts consider essential to a normal childhood.
Here we go.
Así su mamá.
It's a tough way for a baby to begin life, and for the most part, the juvenile justice system ignores the problem. It costs Massachusetts about $29,000 a year to keep Ida and her baby together. That's only $4,000 more than it costs to keep Tiffany in Ventura. Program, the most striking fact to emerge was how little we really know about this new breed of bad girl and her problems. We're simply not accustomed to thinking of girls as a factor in the growing violence in our society. That's one reason the juvenile justice system has done almost nothing to meet the needs of bad girls and their offspring. Traditionally, the system has always concentrated on males, and by and large, the females got what was left over. Our failure to address the needs of bad girls is probably one reason the number of adult women in prison has doubled in just the past 7 years. Unless we start paying attention to bad girls in their formative years, things will only get worse. I'm Deborah Norville. For all of us at NBC News, thank you and good night.